Coming up on Tech News today, shall we forgive Instagram now that they've changed their terms of service? What's in those old terms of service anyway? Also, Gmail enters an experimental phase. We think you might like it. And is TrueCrypt cracked? All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, December 21st, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/TNT and get a copy of Brandon Sanderson's Legion absolutely free at audible.com/Sanderson. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Darren Kitchen.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each time with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse.
Yeah, didn't switch over.
There's good news and bad news for RIM. It all depends on which headline you read. The bad news, RIM announced subscriptions for the last quarter declined 1 million. That's the first decline ever for RIM. Also, revenue fell 48%, and RIM reported an adjusted net loss of $114 million, or 22 cents a share. The good news? Everybody expected it to be worse.
Nokia has announced that it has agreed to a deal with RIM that will end all patent infringement litigation between the companies, with RIM making a one-time payment to Nokia to settle the cases. Going forward, RIM will give Nokia ongoing payments for the right to use its patents. This all goes back to 2003, when the companies signed a licensing agreement that allowed RIM to use some of Nokia's standard essential patents and vice versa.
Instagram is hitting Control-Z on its terms of service change and will revert back to its previous terms of service. Kevin Systrom on the Instagram blog says that Instagram will complete its advertising plans first, then come back to its users to explain how its advertising business would work. Systrom reiterated that Instagram has no intention of selling your photos and never did.
Bloomberg reports HTC will make a 12-inch and 7-inch Windows RT tablets next year. The tablets won't come out until fall and will be running on Qualcomm chips. HTC decided against a full Windows 8 tablet because they'd be too expensive.
CNET reports Facebook will experiment with charging users $1 in order to be able to send messages to people whom with they are not friends. Facebook recently changed messaging so that anyone can send a message to anyone else, but if you're not friends, it ends up in the other folder along with all your spam. Paying $1 would make the message skip the other folder and end up in your inbox.
An Italian court has overturned the conviction of 3 Google executives found guilty of allowing a video of a bullied teenager to be posted online, which breaks Italian law. The clip was uploaded in 2006, and the employees were given 6 months suspended jail sentences in 2010. Google had appealed against the ruling and said it had removed the video within 2 hours of being notified by the authorities.
After looking at a 12-week period ending on November 25th, Kantar World Panel Comtech says that Apple landed its biggest market share ever in the United States, owning 53.3% of the smartphone market. This is the first time Apple has hit over 50%, and Kantar expects more gains in December. In Europe, though, Android is still the king with 61% of the smartphone market, which is up from 51.8% last year.
Senator Ron Wyden isn't a fan of artificial data caps. He says that they, quote, run the risk of undermining innovation, and they are, quote, if they're not designed to truly manage network congestion. So Senator Wyden introduced legislation on Thursday that would require any data cap to function to, quote, reasonably limit network congestion without unnecessary restrictions restricting internet use. Now, this bill would also grant the FCC power to regulate ISPs' methods of measuring bandwidth usage and also introduce network neutrality-like rules.
Have you ever wondered why somebody just didn't set up a bunch of Slingbox-like devices and start renting them out?
All the time.
Well, meet Nimble TV. The plan here is Nimble will set up a cable box for you from any provider you want and stream it to you, only you, over the web, wherever you are. The service's trial run will start in New York City for 250 users, or around that, charging only the cost of the cable subscription. Sometime in 2013, Nimble TV hopes to launch for real and expects to charge around $20 a month on top of the cable package. Let the lawsuits begin.
Why is Edison Jr., the tech lab behind the POP portable power station, returning $139,000 in funding, a little bit more than that, it raised from Kickstarter backers to develop the device? Because Apple refused to give the project permission to license the Lightning charger in a device that includes multiple charging options. POP was billed as the intersection between charging and design and featured connections to charge iPads, iPhones, and Android devices. Apple wouldn't approve, forcing the team to abandon the project.
Oh,
bummer.
man.
I know. It's such
Yeah.
a sad holiday story.
Very, very sad. Well, you know what's not sad?
What?
Free books.
Yeah.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with over 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. They got fiction. I read novels from them all the time. They got nonfiction. They got periodicals. You can get freaking Scientific American, New York Times, all kinds of crazy stuff on there. Listeners of Tech News Today get a free audiobook to try it out. I know a lot of you already use Audible, so pass this URL around. audiblepodcast.com/TNT. Get somebody a free audiobook to give the service a try. I'm just finishing up 2312 by Kim Stanley Robinson, so I'm going to move on to Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. He's the guy who wrote the First Law trilogy, and this is his latest book that's out. It's kind of a Western meets fantasy, but there's lots of great books on there you can try out. Go just browse around, audiblepodcast.com/TNT. Download an audiobook for free, and you've got until the end of this month to get a second book for free. No obligation, nothing, no credit card required. Audible.com/Sanderson. That's audible.com/SANDERSON and get Brandon Sanderson's book, Legion. That's 2 books for free. Visit audiblepodcast.com/TNT and let people know about that URL and thank Audible for their support of Tech News Today. Oh, my. Well, I guess we're going to finish the holidays with more Instagram news.
Yeah, I know. It's they just keep updating things, so we have to keep talking about it. Instagram has officially abandoned attempts to change its terms of service. Terms and conditions have basically reverted to how they read when the site was launched in October 2010, so a little over 2 years ago. Now, some of you might be saying, they listen to the users. They're really just reverting back to terms and conditions that you might have already been a little perturbed about as a user had you read them closely. Kevin Systrom, in an updated blog, said, quote, rather than obtain permission from you to introduce possible advertising products we have not yet developed, we're going to take the time to complete our plans and then come back to our users and explain how we would like for our advertising business to work. So he's pretty much saying, what we did was tell you that we might be planning to do something down the road. Here, make sure that you're agreeing to our terms of service. And we don't know exactly what that will look like yet. So he says, that was our mistake. We should figure out what that's going to look like and then see if everybody's going to get on board.
Upon you.
Yeah, because right now, well, it's just vague. It's vague right now. So it's like we're agreeing to something that doesn't exist yet. Let's see how it exists first. And I think that's a good move on their part. Although Peter Kafka over at All Things D is explaining, if you think for some reason that this isn't about photos getting sold, Instagram still plans on introducing advertising into the service, and that advertising could incorporate user photos. And Instagram's original language already said that. So the original language that we've now reverted back to says, you hereby agree that Instagram may place such advertising and promotions on the service or on, about, or in conjunction with your content. The manner, mode, and extent of such advertising and promotions are subject to change without specific notice to you. So Instagram's not saying, you know what, you're right, advertising is a bad idea, we're not going to do this. They're going to advertise. They're absolutely going to advertise. They have a lot of users. Facebook wants to make some money. I think that's all pretty clear. They are just treading a lot more carefully. That's how I see all of this.
Well, they put out new terms. Everybody freaked out, so they rolled them back.
Yep.
But yes, The Verge makes a great point when they point out that, and Peter Kafka makes the same point, these terms are actually broader. They may not be specifically saying something that everybody can react to and go, that's awful, but they say that they can put ads on, about, or in conjunction with your content, which covers all of the nightmare scenarios that everybody was bandying about. The Kevin Systrom said, no, we're not going to sell your photos to other people. We're not going to place logos over your photos. We're not going to do any of that stuff. But the terms still let them do that.
Yeah, they're just written more broadly.
Yeah.
They're just vaguer. I guess that's what people like. The vague. I like the vague. Doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah.
It's absolutely cracked me up. It's like, change bad, switch them back. That's all it takes to. I mean, this is a PR genius move. If this is going to quiet everybody and not let people leave in droves, just because you went backwards in progress, which is worse theoretically, I just don't understand. It's just like the mass hysteria concept of, oh no, my stocks will drop. I will take my money out of the stock market. Like, if you can create your own problems, if you're not paying attention. If you paid attention to the actual terms, this isn't a good thing, but everyone's going to write it off like a victory.
Okay. I mean, yes, we should all pay attention and read every terms of service front to back. But if we did that, no one would get anything done. Can you imagine? I want somebody to do like an actual estimation of how many hours of productivity would be lost from people actually reading the entire terms of service of every product they use. What's going on here is that people called attention to it because they changed it, right? Nobody reads terms of service. We all know that. So these terms of service never got called attention to because nobody reads them. But Instagram made a point of saying we're changing our terms of service. So that made journalists pay attention. Well, what are they changing? And then all of a sudden everybody got upset about it. I don't think it's obvious that people aren't going to continue to be upset with this rollback. I mean, I think that's what Instagram hopes, and I think it will calm things a little bit. But you should know that Instagram still gets to make money off of your content. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's all about whether you trust Instagram and whether you trust Kevin Systrom when he says, well, we're not going to do horrible things, and you can always leave and use somebody else. XKCD had a great cartoon today where they parodied this situation by saying, hey, I had this friend who let me store all my stuff in his garage, and he let me come into the garage and see it anytime I wanted to, but he just sent me a note saying he's going to like list it all on Craigslist. And the person said, well, are you paying him to look after your stuff? He's like, no. Well, then it's not a storage business. Well, I'm this close to not giving him any more of my stuff.
Well, these are total growing pains in any web service when it comes to advertising. We saw, and everybody tries weird, cool stuff. I mean, at one point in time, Facebook sold animated GIFs, and now you're talking about them potentially charging $1 to send a message to people you don't know. But there's always going to be that kind of reaction, especially when, there's the mysterious change of terms of service. That's what gets everybody all riled up. And then, there's a knee-jerk reaction. There's mob mentality. And I think you're right that nobody reads those terms of service. And even if they spent the time to, it'd be exponentially longer the time that it would take to comprehend all of the legalese involved there as well. When basically it boils down to this: when you put whatever it is, whatever the web service is, no matter how warm and fuzzy they may be, you don't own that content. It's that easy.
Yeah. What they claim the right to do isn't what they will do. You should react to what they will do.
This happened if Instagram was just Instagram and not owned by Facebook. That's the thing I'm kind of curious about.
Probably. They're popular enough, I think so.
I'm thinking Facebook, the specter of Facebook.
We talked about that the other day, too, yeah. And Christmas is going to make everybody forget about this. And then New Year's rolls around, and all of a sudden,
our pictures to Instagram.
Nothing to do. And I think that the traffic hasn't really fluctuated, has it, Sarah?
No. In fact, recent data from AppData, who tracks this sort of thing, said, I mean, as far as all of these, quitting Instagram and I'm moving to Flickr and I'm out of here, it was pretty negligible. The needle didn't move much.
Yeah,
and that's not surprising at all.
Most people aren't paying attention.
Most people aren't paying attention. Some of the people who say that they're going to quit end up just, I don't know, they find something else to think about and they don't follow through. And yeah, it's the vocal people that are angry are just in the minority.
Don't worry, Kim Kardashian will not quit Instagram.
Are you following Kim Kardashian?
No, but there's a bunch of stories about that.
You are, aren't you?
I totally am.
You never need to worry about the terms of service changing on my favorite photo site, which is at 127.0.0.1. I'm just saying. Write whatever you want there.
Let's talk about RIM's good news.
Yeah, the good news is that it beat expectations because expectations were pretty low.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing in general. Okay, so the financials, Tom mentioned some of this. RIM's revenue was $2.7 billion, which is down 47% compared to the same period last year. Earnings were a negative 22 cents per share, expected to lose 35 cents per share. So that's the good news there. They earned $9 million in profit last quarter compared to a $235 million loss a year earlier. Most of that gain, though, came from a tax benefit. And on the non-financial side, they shipped 6.9 million smartphones in the quarter. Last year, they shipped 7.4 million. Now, that 1 million fewer subscribers number, the BlackBerry subscriber count fell to 79 million, down from 80 million. So it's still a sizable amount of people out there. And what's been going on is all the losses in the U.S. have been offset by worldwide gains up to this point. This is where there's a breaking point. And also, RIM's CIO is out. He's going to be leaving soon. RIM says it's got a big cash pile. They're going to be investing in a marketing campaign for its new BlackBerry 10 operating system, finally coming out on January 30th. They're going to have smartphones everywhere. Tom, what do you think it's going to take for BlackBerry 10 to be a success in the market? Is it just flat-out marketing, or does it have to offer something super unique, or does it have to just be decent?
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean, I think BlackBerry 10 has to actually provide the kind of security and enterprise support that keeps the big contracts, and that's what I expect. I mean, yeah, it would be great if they made a splash and did something new for them to gain. But what I think is going to actually happen with RIM is that they're going to come out of this with the analysts saying, you know what, okay, we expected you to take a dive, and you didn't. So if BlackBerry 10 just does okay, if it just holds the line and it keeps the subscriber level where it's at, I think everybody's going to call that a success because everybody expects RIM to go into the toilet.
So it's going to come out. The BlackBerry 10 is coming out in January. We've been waiting for all this time. Now, we just saw that study where Apple's taken over, 55% is it, or 53%? They've taken a majority of the U.S. market share. Can RIM take back some of that U.S. market share? Or now they're facing Windows Phone, they're facing Android as well, Apple. I mean, they didn't take the iOS smartphone at all as a serious competitor way back when. Is this going to make a difference?
Oh, I think that it's been a long time since anyone working in the enterprise truly believed that RIM was the only option. I know that there are a lot of companies who stick with RIM because it's convenient, because they understand, they've got employees who are used to it, all that good stuff. But yeah, I don't think RIM can really claim a whole lot, even though they have nice features, particularly for business users. So do a lot of other operating systems, and people like the bring your own device thing. And I don't see BlackBerry 10 being a huge success. I don't think spending a lot of money on some dumb marketing campaign is going to help either, because I mean, like, what would the campaign have to be to make all of a sudden RIM seem like the second coming of smartphones?
You know, when you said dumb marketing campaign, I thought the Galaxy series of marketing was kind of stupid for a while. Like, okay, we're going to compare ourselves directly to Apple. We're going to show that they're cheap. We're going to show that only old people use iOS.
It's pretty clever, though.
But they worked.
Yeah.
That was the crazy thing. So maybe it's got to take something like that, where it's going to be, okay, these guys have been out there. We're going to disrupt a little bit, but almost like they're the underdog. I wonder if they can pull that off. But maybe a dumb marketing campaign. It's true.
Marketing campaigns aren't always dumb. Sometimes they're really brilliant, and they get the right people behind this. It could be, you know, RIM could almost make fun of themselves to the point where it's like, it's almost like the Yahoo of Web 2.0 companies. It's just like, you know, you forgot about us, but we're back and we're better than ever.
Ken from Chicago is saying RIM is genius. They've managed to lower the bar through the basement. So if they manage to release a BlackBerry that doesn't melt in your hand, it's a win.
It's a win because it's not a failure, but it's not a win if people don't buy them.
Well, I think the fatal flaw for them is if they lose these big contracts. And so if they can hold on to the contracts for people who just use RIM in the enterprise, they'll be okay. They're not going to be recovering. They're not going to be leading anytime soon. But it's all about survival for RIM right now. That's what they need.
Yeah, the way that I feel about RIM hasn't changed. That they need to just focus on what they're good at in the enterprise, and, you know, accept the fact that, hey, maybe you're just a service provider. Maybe you're like good technology. You know.
Which everybody used to use on their BlackBerries back in the day.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of funny.
Google launching new experimental search features in your Gmail.
Yeah, I mean, how much are all of you searching in Gmail and using like particular search operators? Pretty often. Okay, so
I like it.
Yeah, so Darren likes it. I archive everything as well, so search is a big part of my Gmail experience. New search features will be for your Gmail inbox on Google.com or your iOS or your Android device. What Google has already let you do thus far is enter like brackets, open brackets, my flights, close bracket, the search operator to find flights of yours and display them in a nice way. But you can also use queries like my purchases to find the stuff that you've bought on Amazon recently, or track packages if they haven't come in yet. You can use my hotel reservation or my restaurant reservation to bring up travel plans or something that you've booked on OpenTable, for example. You can also use my events to see information from an upcoming concert that you're planning to attend, some sort of sports event. And some of this is already offered in Google Now for Android. So Jason might be like, I feel like I've had this functionality for a while.
Yeah, it's very
This is kind
handy.
of just bringing it to the web and to the iOS users and, to just more users in general. I don't know that I'm not a big searcher when I'm in Gmail, but that's maybe just because I didn't have that many cool things I could do with it until now. I'm in Gmail constantly all the time searching for stuff. Does this seem cool to you guys?
I think it's absolutely cool. It shows that Google Now is kind of the future of Google in general when it comes to searching. Instead of just showing you your data and showing you a list of your emails, it's even this card-style data, which I think is a lot better. I know I've done a lot of searching, a lot of archiving. I'd have to tag everything. I'm thinking these operators are going to go away. You're probably going to see like either auto-completed up there or some kind of like suggested searches that you start doing because so you have this idea that, oh yeah, by the way, I can search this way. I can have this data presented. Like that old trick where you put in a tracking number in Google, just a tracking number, and it'll find if it's FedEx or
Oh, I
UPS or
use
whatever.
that like every day. I love it. Yeah.
But it's just you just try it out the first time, but you don't really. People kind of tell you about
Now,
it.
if you go to Gmail search and just type something in brackets, that's not what this is, right?
No. Well, actually, you don't even need to put it in brackets. You literally just Google my flights or my purchases, and there you go. There's everything.
Do you have to turn it on though?
No, it's on by default. I didn't have to do anything. This is actually not the search functionality that they I think it's experimental. The new stuff that they rolled out in Gmail. This is
Because it doesn't work for me. That's
just
why.
in Google. Well, wait, you type in my flights and you don't have anything?
Nope, nothing.
Oh,
Maybe you don't
see,
have any upcoming flights.
mine tells me that I'm on American Airlines Flight 22
I
from
do.
LAX to JFK, except that I'm not. I'm not going to JFK
Maybe you
anytime
just forgot.
soon. Now, I am going from Oakland to Las Vegas for CES, so it did get that one right.
It gives me a web search of flight memory. Check my trip, my flights, iPhone, and iPad.
You signed in?
Huh? Yeah,
Is it possible that it's just rolling out slowly?
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an experimental search. Yeah,
but I thought the flights was already on.
I've had that work before, and I can't get it to work now. So I'm with you on that.
Maybe they turned it off for some people. Yes, this sounds awesome. I want to do this. And your idea about having it like drop down stuff. I think that.
I find it interesting that like everything in Google now is like, put it into a card. Let's find out how to cardify this.
Cardify.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I just feel like,
That's
well,
what
okay.
Matthijs Duarte, right? He came over from Palm. He's like, cards is still the answer. And here they are.
I'm thinking that maybe at a certain point Google lets you do kind of like how you do with like Gmail themes for your cards, because I really want these to look like punch cards, especially the flights.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about this news that TrueCrypt has been broken. The PGP has been cracked. Here's what's really going on behind some of these inflammatory headlines you may be seeing out there. Back in February 2008, some Princeton researchers demonstrated that you could freeze RAM to extract strong encryption keys. Because for TrueCrypt or PGP or BitLocker to work, the key has to exist in RAM to unlock it. You have to have a key to unlock a lock. That's just the way locks and keys work. December 2009, there was a program called Passware that was updated to crack BitLocker on a running machine. So you didn't have to freeze the RAM. It just required access to the physical memory image file. Also worked against PGP and TrueCrypt. So this has been around for a while. This is not something new. The thing that's new here is the password kit, Forensic 12.1, costs $995. So essentially $1,000. Elcomsoft has come out with something called the Forensic Disk Decryptor that's only $299. So this just got a lot more affordable for someone to do. Now, here are the three ways this thing works. It can analyze a hibernation file if the disks were not dismounted before you put your computer to sleep. It can analyze a memory dump file obtained from another tool on a running PC that has admin logged in. So this is why they say don't always be logged in as root. And you can use the FireWire attack, which goes back to that 2008 freezing attack. On a running PC with volumes mounted, you can use a tool like Inception through FireWire to attack this. Now, apparently, recent versions of OS X have been patched to block this, but not all FireWire implementations are safe. So the way around this is to turn your laptop off when it's unattended, right? Darren? I mean, if I want to prevent this attack from happening, if my laptop is off, the disks are dismounted, I'm safe.
Then you're good to go. Yeah, and you explained it very well. I mean, and this attack has been around for quite a while. I just looked it up on Hack5. We covered this in 2009 using a tool from Mantech called MDD. And the principle is, grab the key rather than try to attack the underlying encryption technology, which is actually really robust. Go ahead and go for the weakest link. And in this case, the weakest link is the fact that, hey, it's in RAM. And, rather than have to actually pull out the RAM and freeze it with I don't know, one of those air blowers upside down or something. You can, boot off of a lot of times what you can do is boot off of a special USB drive. Say the computer is suspended or something like that. You force it to reboot. You're off this thing. And there's only like a momentary lack of power to the RAM. And then you're into a new operating system where you can image the RAM. This is... The idea of going about that is totally the hacker way. I mean, look at the latest attacks on WPA. They don't actually attack WPA encryption. They attack like kind of a side door from like WPS, the Wi-Fi protected setup, because, that was the convenient factor here. And so this is just another example of when it comes to convenience, it's always going to hinder security. And the convenience in this case is, well, if we encrypt your entire hard drive, that makes it easy because you're not constantly locking and unlocking different volumes. And so let's just set it up so you type in the password when you boot, and then it's completely unlocked from there.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other thing to point out is, at that point, though, if you have access to the machine and the keys are in RAM, chances are, the drive's already unlocked. So there may be other ways to, exfiltrate data from that machine anyway.
But TrueCrypt, PGP, BitLocker are not broken.
No, they're not broken. And there's ways that you could implement them or other similar technologies to make it, quote unquote, more secure, which would just basically add more hoops for you to have to jump through whenever it is getting access to these different bits of data. I'd still say, if you're that concerned about it, even if you have full disk encryption, there's nothing that says, hey, you can't also use TrueCrypt volumes on top of that to store really important stuff that you don't leave open all the time.
Yeah, well, that's a good tip. Let's talk about some home automation. Looks like everybody wants to turn your home into a robot.
I found a fun story today. The Wall Street Journal says that Microsoft, Google, and Apple are in acquisition talks with a home automation startup called ID8 Group 2 Studios. Now, R2 Studios was created by the founder of Sling Media, Blake Krikorian, and they've developed home media and automation technology before. They've released an app last year that turns Android phones into touch panels for controlling heating and lighting systems. Now, they also hold some patents related to controlling electronic devices and interfaces. I'm just hoping this is true. Assuming one of these companies, Google, Microsoft, or Apple, are trying to acquire R2, which company, Sarah, do you think would do the most with home automation? Or maybe Tom?
I mean, who would do the most? I don't know. I mean, and they're all going to do a lot of stuff. Who would do the best, I think?
It seems like, I mean, Google's they love tinkering with their lab projects,
Yeah.
It seems like that would be the company that would throw the most weight behind it, because Apple's like the perfectionist company, so you wouldn't see anything until it was like perfect, and that could take a long time. And Microsoft, I don't even know where they fit in.
I thought we were going to see this last year with the Android at home stuff. Remember, it was when Google launched, what was it, Ice Cream Sandwich, that they also announced this Android open accessory. And from that, we were supposed to see things like Project Tungsten and basically using Android as the operating system for your home is the way that they described it. So it seems like that may have been a misstep. Maybe it didn't get adopted as they wanted.
They're still working on it.
Yeah, and so now it's just like, all right, let's just get some people involved in this. Let's get some companies that know this stuff.
I was about to say I don't see Apple getting into this space, but I take that back 100%. What Apple needs to do is be able to follow up the Apple television, right? Everybody talks about how Apple needs a new hit. The iPad was the last hit that they had, that market is now showing signs of maturing. The iPhone market the phone market has definitely matured. So the television is their next great savior if they pull that off. Home automation, they need to be planning for the hit after that, and home automation could be it. If Apple comes out with an Apple-y way of giving you easy home automation, a la Sonos, a la Nest, but for a lot more things, and that's simple to install, that would be a huge
exactly.
thing for Apple.
If Apple could do this and make it affordable, it's one of those things where, you know, it's the oldest sales trick in the book. Sell them something they didn't know they needed. Well, you have a home already, you know, you have a phone, and you're a geek. Put it all together.
I don't know. Google's been trying to get in the living room for a while with Google TV and other products, and they have not done a good job with that.
That's so sad.
And the thing is, Apple, I think, would do a decent job, but I think Microsoft should be gunning for this company because they have the operating system that is on everything, and they have the Xbox. So why not say your Xbox Connect, or you yell at Xbox, dim the lights, or whatever you want to say to do? I'm thinking that's...
Microsoft's done home automation.
Yeah, I was
And
about to say, Microsoft is at CES for the last 20 years showing off home automation stuff. It's always the digital living room, isn't it?
And they would come out with a product that would exist faster. Now, Apple would do it perfect, and Microsoft would do it now and revise it. So I just want to see it now.
Actually, just one of the three, or anybody, just do it. Not X10. Just somebody do it right. Or was it X11? No, that's Unix.
It's 10.
Yeah, it's X10.
Yeah. Well, Google and Apple have the cash. I don't know if Microsoft can outbid them. But I'd be interested to, if I'm R2, I'm sitting there like, bring it. Yeah, I'm like, I'll take your check. You know, let's bring on your huge cash reserves. See what you got. Let's finish up with Senator Ron Wyden data cap proposed legislation. Data caps maximize revenue. They don't minimize congestion. We talked about that in our bandwidth caps episode earlier this year. In fact, a white paper from New America Foundation earlier this week argued that very point. But Thursday, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon introduced data cap regulation. His statement is data caps create challenges for consumers and run the risks of undermining innovation in the digital economy if they are imposed bluntly and not designed to truly manage network congestion. Here are the three things that he wants to put in this legislation. Let me know what you guys think of this. Number one, accuracy. Have the FCC regulate measurement and have ISPs required to provide accurate tracking tools. Number two, data caps should be reasonably limiting network congestion without unnecessarily restricting internet use. So he's trying to focus it on the congestion problem. And number three, data caps cannot be used to provide preferential treatment of data that is based on the source or content of the data. So kind of a net neutrality provision. Darren, what do you think?
Well, I think it's broad enough that it's kind of like a rolling target kind of thing, and saying that, hey, your cap is related to innovation. And so I imagine that means, you know, as the web evolves and we use more and more bandwidth, that we don't end up with these arcane, like, what is it on Comcast, like 250 gigs or something like that?
They've actually retired their cap for the, but that's what it was.
But that's what it was. And I don't know if I believe the whole idea that data caps are just for maximizing ISP revenue. I think, yes, they could be used to tier like what T-Mobile does. You know, T-Mobile with their broadband wireless, they offer like 2 gigs or 5 gigs or 7 gigs for different prices. Whereas, you know, not having data caps still is maximizing revenue, just not for the internet service provider. It's maximizing it for like Cisco and other backbone providers, equipment providers that have to like build out the infrastructure to support that kind of stuff. What we
discussed in the bandwidth cap episode is that if you want to relieve congestion, you would provide a way for people to pay extra or some kind of disincentive at peak times. But what caps do is they say you can't use more than this anytime. So it actually doesn't relieve congestion. And that's why I made that statement about maximizing revenue. It's about maximizing revenue for the ISP. Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any good real world analogy for it.
Iyaz, what do you think? Should we regulate this though? Is that the answer?
It basically looks like Wyden wants to provide tools that your electric company gives you. Like you can see your own usage. You can see when you're being charged more or not. But this idea of having transparency and being able to provide the consumers tools, and being able to tell the consumers what's going on, I don't know if these companies are going to be so forthcoming. I mean, we've seen this whole thing with, remember AT&T FaceTime, and I know that's wireless. But the idea was, because one of the rules about regulation was if it's about keeping your network intact and trying to keep your network speedy, you can do these kinds of things. And so AT&T was dragging their feet on giving information. So it'd be great if Wyden get this through and we see ISPs giving out this information, but I just don't know how the compliance side is going to be.
I kind of like the thing about accuracy. I think that's a good thing, and that seems to me a a place for a regulatory agency to say, let's make sure that everybody's got the proper information to evaluate the marketplace. Sarah, do you have an opinion on this? No.
Well,
nobody likes data caps. I know that.
I mean, nothing that you guys haven't already said, really.
The thing about this to me is I think that number one accuracy thing is fine. I don't think that the government should get into the business of telling ISPs to reasonably limit network congestion without unnecessarily restricting internet use. It sounds great, but how do you define it? How do you put it into practice? How do you make sure that you're not impacting good network management or just that the ISPs come up with clever ways of getting around it? I think the solution to this is competition. It's what I've always said about net neutrality, too. And we don't seem to be doing anything to provide competition. And whether that's making a regulation that requires the pipes to be open for multiple uses, or whether that's just some kind of incentive program to allow people to run more pipes and put out more wireless, we as consumers can avoid all of the problems that they're trying to avoid here by having a choice, by having, many choices. So that the company that wants to get our business says, well, we're not going to do data caps, or our data caps will only be during congestion-heavy time because we're really doing them about congestion. I actually don't have a problem with the ISPs using data caps as a way to monetize based on usage. What I have a problem with them is lying to us to tell us that, oh, we're only doing it because of congestion. They've been not rolling out new fiber. They've been not adding capacity. They've been adding capacity at slower and slower rates, and they've been making lots more money off of data caps. Making money's fine, but just be honest about how you're doing it.
As long as that infrastructure is tied to like one particular company and they're not opened up, that's where I think the problem comes in. And that's why I started worrying about the wireless section, because that is a little bit more open and it seems to have less regulation. So it's kind of this issue of when these get opened up, maybe we'll see what you're saying, Tom.
So I think this is, again, just like any debate between regulation versus the free market and whether or not the free market can win and if there is enough competition. I think you're right that it's kind of stupid for Congress to say like, oh, well, you have to make sure that you're using these best data practices, because you're right, the ISPs will just get around it some way. It's saying that, hey, if you're an ISP that is going to do data caps, having kind of a standardized way to report on those, whether it's kilobytes or kilobytes or whatever, that's not a bad thing, I don't see. And this is one of those things where I just want to see the free market win. You'd pointed out wireless and it being more open. It reminds me of in the 90s, and this may have been because this was also a time when everybody was first getting online and the technology was all dial-up. But do you remember like advertising, like you turn on the television and you couldn't go 5 minutes without seeing an AOL or an Arrows or a whoever ad, because there was actual competition. There was nothing limiting you from going to your mom and pop ISP versus like a dozen others.
And they were all using the telephone network.
And they were all using the telephone network, right? And so
they didn't build their networks.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but no, I mean that seemed to work for and the telcos didn't go out of business.
No, and think about this then, right? What if the year was 1997 and ISP A is like, we've got the best 56K ever, but listen, you're capped to 100 megabytes a week. Well, if you could even get that on 56K. Well, anyway, you're capped to 100 megs a week or something, and ISP B is like, yeah, we don't have that cap. Back then we actually had enough competition that the free market would have won. So maybe it's a part where this is because there isn't enough free competition, or there isn't enough competition in the free market that Congress actually feels like they have to step in and do something about it.
Let's move on to the randomizer. Before Darren's just going to proselytize. So you have a soapbox under there?
Actually, yeah, there is a soapbox under there.
It really is. I'm not kidding. So, granted, bandwidth caps, ISPs, an important topic, but even more important is the fact that Gangnam Style has hit 1 billion YouTube views.
Well, if we had caps, it couldn't do that. Okay?
Didn't that already
Too many
happen?
caps.
Blame the caps.
Blame the caps? That's why it's so low?
Oh, it would be more if we didn't have bandwidth caps, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, apparently it's not slowing Psy down.
Yeah.
That's great.
You seem pained by this.
I'm not pained by it. I just don't know why all of the year-end parody videos have to be about Gangnam Style, and we have to talk about how it has more views than Justin Bieber's song on YouTube.
Nothing's ever gotten 1 billion views before.
I understand that is a milestone. Got it. It's just like it worms its way in there, and then it's so hard to get out.
Can I freak you out, Sarah?
Sure.
Never seen it.
Me either.
Really?
That's right.
All right.
Wow.
Not part of the.
But you've
I am the
heard the
1%.
song.
Wait, no, that
I
doesn't
think the
sound
video
right.
is actually kind of fun, but the song itself is what I just don't.
40% of this
I've had enough.
I don't understand the
show
song.
has not seen Gangnam Style.
I don't either.
Don't look right.
It's not even in English.
Well, I mean, I've never seen it in its entirety. I'm sure I've seen enough parodies of it. Enough
Yeah,
of that.
yeah,
that
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
what it is.
It feels like I've seen enough of it.
I just have to point out that I heart the TechCrunch headline in that Gangnam Style hits 1 billion YouTube views and the world does not end. I didn't realize those were tied together. So anyway, everybody that went on YouTube and watched Gangnam Style and we're all still here because of that, thank you.
I guess you could add that clause to every headline, right?
Happy 14th Baktun, everyone. Let's see what's on the calendar now that we continue to have a calendar.
Well, yeah, we have a calendar. Disney is going to unveil a new gaming initiative called Infinity on January 15th. There's a lot of other stuff that's going to happen in January, but CES and
Yeah, because this is the
Blackberry.
last. This is the last live show before
we go to our
January
best
2nd.
ofs. Yeah.
Yeah, because next week it's all best ofs and stuff.
So some of that January stuff I'll save for when we come back from our break.
Right.
But yeah, that's something to look forward to. Infinity from Disney
And beyond.
and beyond.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a message from Mike. He says, "Hey, TNT crew, the Amazon show you mentioned in episode 653 about 4 senators living in a shared house seems to be based on an actual house. Representative George Miller owns a house by the Senate that he shares with another congressman and 2 senators. It's been featured in a few different stories and has gained the nickname Animal House. I'm glad finally somebody picked up on this. To add drama to the real-life story, the senators Durbin and Schumer are the number 2 and 3 ranking Democrats in the Senate and are competing to take over as a majority leader when Senator Reid steps down. I know I'll be watching."
I extra that that he's associated those 2 ideas. I want it to be based on the true stories.
True stories are just dramatized with Animal House. Just add some, I guess, whiskey.
All right, well that's it for this episode of Tech News Today and for this year of Tech News Today. Really, I mean, you've got more Tech News Today in your feeds coming, but we've already recorded those shows. So for us, this is the last one we're doing for the year. Darren Kitchen, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
Almost every Friday all year long. What's happening at Hack 5 year end?
You want to find out how you can crack just about any standard Windows password in a little under 6 hours? You can. Go to hack5.org. Extreme GPU clusters.
If you've lost your password, this is a way back into your Windows machine.
It is.
6 hours.
For 6 hours. That is it, folks. Thank you for being with us all year long. We're looking forward. Yeah, I know we got some changes coming. But we're looking forward to a great 2013. Sarah Lane, thank you.
Yes, Tom Merritt, thank you.
It was a great year.
It was a fun year. Yeah, we had some times.
We had lots of good times.
It's been real.
There were times and there were days with shows and stuff.
Jason Howell, thank you for pushing the buttons and making sure people can see us all year long.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Iyaz Akhtar couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me so far. This has been great.
And we thank every single one of you out there, and I mean you, for sticking with us. I will not be here on January 2nd, 3rd, or 4th because I'll be moving. I'll be back on the 7th, but I won't be in my main location yet. Right.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to take this. Why is that on? Who's calling me? Grab my phone.
It's 2013. It's calling.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So yes, January 7th. Just to make this clear, it helps spread the word. January 7th through that week, I will not be in my new location in LA. I'll be like a guest in a hotel room. So don't evaluate my connection until January 21st. That's when I'll actually be in LA. I'll actually be back in the studio the 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's gonna be fun.
It's going to be fun. It's a new era of TNT, and 2013 is going to be great.
And our success is in your hands.
That's true.
We will make the content as we do every time the best we can make it. You can help by watching, by responding to our sponsors when you find their offerings likable, by submitting at our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Let us know what kinds of stories you like, what kind of stories you don't like. You can vote things up and down. And of course, you can always find our episodes at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. We will sort of be back on Monday with special episodes. We'll see you next year.